When it comes to the types of data visualizations that we encounter, there's three main buckets of visualizations. And the first is an analysis interface. All of these things sort of work together in a process and kind of start with the analysis phase and with the gathering phase and move into sort of more processed data and then into the actual storytelling and presentation phase. Starting with the analysis interface, the sort of first part of the process, this is really the gathering phase. This is where you're in your Google Analytics or your SEMrush or your Refs, these tools that we all use on a regular basis to pull in a lot of data. Google Analytics is obviously, one of the largest ones when it comes to understanding a website, but there's lots of different tools that people use for this. This is purely about getting raw, effective data and tracking the right metrics and really getting the setup right so you bring in the right information and then just gathering in all of that data and then moving it into something called a performance dashboard, which is more focused on strategic KPIs. It's not necessarily taking the drinking from a fire hose that is an analysis interface, because they are just broad swaths of raw data that are visualized with charts and graphs, but they're not very, easily accessible and easy for people to understand and surface who aren't very familiar with the tool. Whereas a performance dashboard is going to be more, okay, it's a distillation. We're going to take from this big tool that gathers everything every interaction on our site and pull it into something that's focused on only what we want to focus on metrics wise. So performance dashboards are more about processing. They're more we understand the key element of the site that we're trying to focus on and learn about. Now we've pulled it into a digestible dashboard that we can look at a high level. And we can surface with all sorts of members of the team and allow them a quick hit look into what is happening in this particular area. So they're much more focused than a broad analysis interface. And just that act of translating that is definitely something that requires a lot of skill and practice. How do you take this broad interface that has a lot of different features and functions and shift that into something that is digestible and even that people could analyze and understand at a glance? From there, then we move into the storytelling side of things. So dashboards are great for surfacing, focused data, but they're not always the best from a visualization standpoint. They're usually very crowded. They're still, even though they're focused down, they still have a lot of different data on them, and sometimes it's difficult to parse out a narrative. That's really what differentiates storytelling, and it's why we call it that in the first place, is that we're not just serving up data anymore for people to come to their own conclusions. We have come to the conclusion and we are presenting that conclusion. And that's the storytelling side of things. So that's the presentation element. And getting all three of these right is really vitally important to having strong data visualization skills, because it's hard to excel in just one area. All of them kind of work together and complement one another. And if you haven't pulled the right data from the processing stage into the presentation phase, then the storytelling is going to be a little weak. And so it's knowing where to find what's happening and then how to find the data and then process that into a presentation. And then the visualization component is then, okay, how do I present this in a way that makes it vitally clear how to interpret this data? I've already done the interpretation myself. What's the thing I want you to take away as either my leadership or my team members, so that they can understand what the direction is and what we need to do next based on this data? So this three-step process is really vital.